So, Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh, Sat Sangat Ji. We've got Bhai by Jagjit Singh Ji, who are talking about the Panj Pyareh as part of the Sikh Discord camp. So, Bhai Ji, just before we start the presentation, would you mind just telling us a bit about yourself and the seva that you're involved in, Ji?
Okay, so I'll just do this. Sasangaji, please forgive me. I've not used this Discord app before. I'm relatively new to this. I'm quite competent on Teams and Zoom and everything else, but there's so much technology changing, and I'm getting to be an old man now. Just to tell you a bit about myself, I kept my gears in 1992. Quite a significant time ago. Born in UK, didn't know much about Sikhi growing up. Went to Khalsa camps, got really inspired by other Gursikhs, and I came into Sikhi. At that time, there was no one doing talks for youth that are born in UK. I was probably one of the first, and so started writing talks because I really enjoyed what I was learning in terms of Sikhi, and helped a lot of people become talkers over the years. We basically have been involved in numerous camps. So I've been doing seva for about 25 years now, and I talk in a lot of Gurdwara, etc. And I'm involved in about 15 different Sikh organizations, from World Sikh Parliament to Sikh Relief to Khalsa Foundation to Share Charity. I was originally involved in Khalsa in the early years, and then basically sorry, I wasn't involved in Khalsa, but I knew people that were involved there. In terms of Sikh Council, I was one of the original 5 that helped set that up. Various kind of things, a various array of things, many Gurdwara committees, and I do talks around the world. Key thing for me was that there's Sikhi is very beautiful, and there's not enough people that are explaining it in a concise way to the next generation. And that's why I've got about 120 talks on my laptop, presentations, etc., on various subjects. From doing years of camps, one of the key things that I'm known for is the Sikh parenting course, which I've now been doing for about 6 years around the world. About 10,000 people have done that, and it's helped many, many families have a much more harmonious environment that they all live in. It's been very good for people that are getting married and looking at how they want to set up their households. So we give a lot of skills, a lot of tips there, etc., about how to live more according to Gurbani and a more productive lifestyle. So that's the kind of seva I've been involved in. I've written some books called Gurbani and other books as well, and through Share Charity we release a lot of apps and books and various other things as well. So that's a bit about myself. In terms of work, I own a nursing home. I'm a very specialist in cancer care, and I've been running that now for 15 years. It's an award-winning care home that I have in West Yorkshire. So that's a bit about myself. Anji. So we'll get started now. VG, are we okay? Enough people logged in. Shall we get started? VG's asked to talk on Panj Pyareh. And so when I was thinking about doing the talk on Panj Pyareh, I was looking at some of the other stuff that I have. I think we need to put stuff in context. So I'm going to go at a certain I'm going to be going through, but at the end we can have a lengthy question answer session. I'm very used to doing question answers. The key thing here is about understanding concept and really getting the wider picture in our mindsets. If there's anyone struggling with me just speaking English and wants me to speak Punjabi, please say so, or if VG can say. Otherwise, because I want to go through this at a certain speed, we're going to do mainly in English. So before we start anything, Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh. So really, before we go on to Panj Pyareh, we really need to understand why Amrita came into existence and what is our purpose of life. Now, Amrit didn't start with Guru Gobind Singh and 1699. Some people think it did, but that's not actually accurate. If we read Bhai Gurdas Ji Vara and we understand Gurbani, Amrit existed from Guru Nanak Dev Ji, and the first person to take Amrit was his sister. And so Bibi Nanki, and at that time it was Charan Paul. and through all the Guru Sahib, it's always been Charan Pal. But when Guru Sahib Sri Guru Gobind Singh Ji, when they basically declared that it's going to be the Guru Granth Sahib going forward, Shabd Guru Surat Panchila, that Guru Granth Sahib Ji is going to be going forward, then he created the concept of the Panch Pyareh, so that they are the physical roop of the Guru and they are the decision-making process of the Panth. That kind of political and sovereignty structure that we have in the Panth, along with the Guru Granth Sahib Ji, which is our Guru. So really, it's important to understand the purpose of life. And if we look at it from our concepts here, growing up in the West, it's basically you have a very clear option, Hannah. You can basically see what you want to do as a Manmukh or as a Gurmukh. And most of us don't even know these phrases or don't know where this is coming from, because we are based through media. We are conditioned through our sources of information or TV or school or everything else, that there's a certain way to live, and do what everyone else does, go with the flow, and just become part of a melting pot of world cultures. But Sikhi asks us to think of things on a higher level, because when we use the words Manmukh and Gurmukh, they're a reflection of your mindset. Your face is a reflection of your mindset. If you look stressed, it's because your mind is stressed. If you look happy, it's because your mind is happy. If you're spiritual and your face has that spiritual glow, it's because your mind is full of that spiritual glow. So it's about understanding the difference between who is a Manmukh and who is a Gurmukh according to life. And this is not just in Sikhi. If we look at other things, I've studied Confucius. Confucius also talks about similar concepts of the higher being and the lower being based on their virtues, and many other things. When we look at Gurbani, this is Mahalla Pella. So Guru Sahib tells us about the stages of life in terms of this is what happens to people, the aging process from what we're having. And in terms of what happens is in our world structure that we live in, always just taught that's it. It's about getting an education, getting a job, getting your children to having a good position, etc. And then you eventually you retire and enjoy your twilight years. But the problem is, and I've seen this also in our Panth, we have become quite a Mahatari or community. We were a community of spiritual saint soldiers, but our journey, particularly our journey through the immigrant process, has basically made us quite Mayatari. But that has a natural concept of basically a first generation coming here and having nothing. Now that we're second, third generation, we can be a bit more reflective on this, because we now have the facilities around us to be having time to really think about what we want in life. So Guru Sahib, he explains to us, it's not just us being someone else. It's just not us like being like all the other millions and billions of people out there. It's about us finding a higher purpose. So just like you basically have a bird, and the bird has two wings, we have our worldly side and our spiritual side. Now, I've been fortunate to speak with Sangat in Hong Kong, in Australia, New Zealand, Africa, America, North America, Europe, and UK. And wherever you Sangat is very similar. Anikadukia, subsansar. So what we have is that we basically have one generation who came through immigrant process, and they worked really hard, and they gave their kids a good foundation. Then we have a next generation where generally en masse, many of them have got really good educational skills and they've gone into good jobs. And now we've got the facilities, the cars, the houses. It doesn't matter where you are in the world. We basically have gone through that process. But unfortunately, because we as families don't talk enough about Sikhi, we don't talk enough about what our purpose on life here is, we've come to a point where one wing is flapping quite hard, which is our worldly side, and the other wing, which is our spiritual side, has been neglected. And so we've come as an imbalanced community, and result of that imbalance is that we are very lacking in Gurbani knowledge, and we need to be more open to the concepts of spirituality. The net result of a lot of this stuff is where you don't have Naam, you have a lot of Glees. And also where you have glias, then you also have a lot of mental health issues and or substance abuse or other things like that. So firstly, we need to understand in terms of this purpose of life, we are very blessed. So basically, we are blessed. This is your chance to meet Akal Purkh, joining the satsanga, jumping naam, going across this world ocean, etc. So we need to understand this is the thing, because our definitions of sukh are very different. And some people, they find sukh through substance abuse, going out Friday, Saturday nights. Some people find it from doing drugs because that is what they're conditioned to do. Maybe that's what their parents were doing, or that's what those around them are doing. Other people realize sukh is not about any kind of misuse of substance, and it's not getting from your house or even from our family around us. Real sukh comes from sage. Real sukh comes from abhyas. Real sukh comes from helping other people. And it's about us exploring these concepts of what actually is happiness. And that because when you have that imbalance, we don't have our natural equilibrium. If we have people that are on huge amounts, now I've been doing seva for 25 years. Now, if we went back 15 years and all the years before that, in our camps and everything else, Maharaj Kirpa, I've met thousands of Sikhs from around the world, and it was all about Sada, how we get our manjorna, how we basically should be doing Amrit Vela, what is about Red, and how can we be better at doing our Jivan, etc. All of these kind of questions about how to improve our Sikhi. And then suddenly, over the last 10 years, a lot of it has been about mental health. We see a lot of them questions coming through. Now, partly that's because we've got better at talking about mental health issues, but partly is because we're getting this net kind of a reaction to the fact that we have a lot of screen time and we are losing our natural equilibrium. So this is a natural balance of our mind, body, and soul. And if we're doing question time, I'll talk a bit more about mind, body, and soul. And unless we don't find our natural balance, so water is always at its natural equilibrium. Whether you pour it, it will always flow to a point until it finds balance. And our mind is very similar to that. People can shake it. People can, like it says in Gurbani, Tir Vajdaya of Kam Krodh Lo Monkar. But if you've got Nitnem and you've got Sage and you've got your armor from doing your morning Nitnem, yeah, it doesn't matter what tir are fried at you, they just fall on the floor because you have that natural balance of Sage. You've got that equilibrium. And this is the thing, it's about most of the world are not even recognizing there is, and most of the world are just indulging in it because they think this is life. And even people in our community, because we very much give importance to what's on the news, what our teachers tell us, what information we get, and we're not always great at basically analyzing that information and realizing, is this actually good for me? So people are basically get into drugs, people are doing cigars, people are having affairs, various other things, and they think this is quite normal. But it's not really normal for the mindset of a human being. Whereas Gursikhs, Maharaji Kirpa, now we have wonderful Gursikhs in our Panth, or we've had them, and we can see them kind of examples. They're basically going on and doing, they're Sukh, they're doing Ardas for Dukh because they want that kind of challenge. They want to be doing Seva, they want the Kushiyan of Akal Purkh. And it's about us even exploring what is this, they say, je mangana sir dukha ki dukh, dehe naam santokhiya, uttare man ki pukh. So basically understanding what are they actually asking for here and why are they asking for it there? Because this is the balance between your mind, body, and soul. And majority of people on this world live in this imbalance. So when we talk about 1699, and we have many great pictures, but I'm using this one, and I'm also putting a disclaimer here because there's eyewitness accounts we've seen where they actually said there was no tent and Guru Sahib did everything out in the open. But the key thing is when Guru Sahib asked for a cease, and many people in the Sangat were scared. Many people, when you come to the house of Guru, you don't come with your head on your shoulders. When you come into the house of the Guru, you come with your head in your hands, which means you're coming to learn. You're coming not with ego, but you're coming there to learn. But not everyone was doing that. Some people were just coming to see because they saw it as a Sangat. But then Guru Sahib was asking for your head in your hands because he was asking, because for us, to understand the concept of a forge, we have to give our cease first and we have to be reconditioned as a saint soldier. And that reconditioning happens through Nityanem, happens through Bani, happens through Naam and Red. It says Asamida Shadake. Basically, we come into this Guru's realm, and Guruji then basically gives us seva for humanity, seva for the Panth, where we do amazing things based on our bias to make this world a better place. Now, this is the thing. It's very, very difficult to serve the true Guru, to surrender your head, to give up your selfishness. It's basically realizing only through the Shabad that your seva is then accepted. And realizing that there's a personality of the Guru and you use that personality to uplift yours. And that's when the light of the Guru comes through. So I'm explaining that in English because my understanding is most of the Sangha theories in English, but understanding how that Jyot from the Guru is going to come into yourself as Jyot. So when we look at the original Panj Pyare, we have Bhai Daya Singh, Bhai Dharam Singh, Bhai Himmat Singh, Bhai Mokam Singh, and Bhai Sahib Singh. Now, for them to be given these names is not by just by chance. It's very thought out process here, because what we have to understand is that for a person who's a normal person living in this world, in humanity, for them to become a Gursik, when you have this process from a Manamuk to a Gurmukh, you have to go through a change process, and that change process exists. So sometimes children in camp say to me, what is it being a Sikh? What does it actually mean? I said to them that being a Sikh is about you becoming the quality human being you can ever become on this earth. Constantly becoming even better, constantly analyzing yourself. Can I have less hankar? Can I have less calm? Can I have less krodh? Can I reduce these vikaras in my life? Can I be a more elevated spirit? And constantly challenging yourself. Bande khoj dil har roj, fir pashtani mai. So basically, banda, as a human being, can I analyze myself and basically look inside my heart and see what is actually in there and improve myself? And if you can carry on doing that for the rest of your life, so that by the time you pass away, you are the best quality human being you can become, is a person who's going on the process of becoming a Sikh. And a Sikh is not just someone who basically, that's it, I look like a Sikh and I go to the Gurdwara and that's it, that's what being a Sikh is. No, a Sikh is about process. A Sikh is about process. It's about you basically constantly becoming better quality human being. We look at this, when Guru Sahib basically in 1699, he basically created the concept of the Panj Pyare. These are not just Panj Pyare that are there for Nagar Kirtans or Amrit Jars or anything else. These are Panj Pyare who are the decision-making process of the Panth. They are our form of sovereignty, and we are very much conditioned nowadays, in particular, even talk about the concept of sovereignty, or what we used to call in Punjabi Padshahi, is that our Padshahi, Guru Sahib gave us a Padshahi. Instead, what we do is we think, oh yeah, whatever the British government are doing is that's okay. We just accept it. And oh yeah, they did this in Afghanistan, they did this here. Oh, whatever the Americans are doing, not realizing actually what the news is telling us is conditioned so that we follow a certain policy decision that they are coming with. That policy might not be Guru Sahib's policy, because Guru Sahib's policy is about doing betterment for all humanity. And not necessarily all governments want that. They just want betterment for their core people or their particular population. And so we have to understand the Panj Pyare is there as the decision-making process of the Panth. And even if we look in most of our Jathebandiyan, and even in our Gurdwara, and as a Panth, we still haven't fully adopted the process of the Panj Pyare in the way that Guru Sahib intended us to do, and hopefully through education, our generation will do that. And it's about Guru Sahib himself creating the Bhatta of Amrit and basically showing how they are going to basically create the shield of the virtues of the Guru to protect us from everything that is ill in humanity. And that is what Amrit is there for. Amrit is there to give you a very important Sacha Soda. And Soda, which is there, Guru Sahib says to you, you keep this red. And for that red, the Guru Sahib's giving you Nitnem, Guru Sahib's giving you a Jivan Jaj, and most importantly, Guru Sahib's giving you Naam, which you jap. And if you take an Amrit and you don't really understand the concept of Naam, really you got it's basic as Ram Naam Sab Hai Ram Nama, which is what Gurbani tells us, and we have to really learn more about Naam. Okay, so when we look at the names of the Guru Sahibs, we have Daya. Daya is a primary virtue. It's impossible to be a Sikh without having Daya. It's about understanding everything around us. It's about understanding where there is injustice and standing up for justice. It's about understanding who are the weak and who are the people that are oppressing, etc. And whether that's in a human form or whether that's an animal form or whether that's an environment form, etc. All of these things, you're developing your concept of Daya. And a lot of this comes from the base source thing that Guru Sahib gives us, which is Naam. The more you Naam jap, the more you understand Daya. Because you become one with the things around you. So when you Naam jap, particularly like we do up here in the north, where we have access to a lot of amazing scenery, you Naam jap and you're sitting in environments, and nice, beautiful environments, you want to become one with the environment. When you're sitting in Sangats, you want to become one with the Sangat. Understanding what Daya is. When you have Daya, then it leads to a place where you need Dharam, you need principles, and you need to care. Because you'll find there's a lot of people that are religious or non-religious, but they simply don't care about anything around them, whether it's the environment, other human beings, whether it's things like the caste system and how it oppresses people. For me, when people talk about India and the caste system, I don't see India as a democracy. I see it as the world's largest apartheid system because of the way the caste system exists. And so Sikhi teaches us to speak about all of these injustices around us, and our dharam is there to give us the life skills. So when you look at the top here, I say it's understanding life skills and life standards. So these are not just the skills that Maharaj has given us, but these are the standards with what we behave. So we have that as a dharam in caring to save humanity and bring justice. Now, these are the first two, and I'll talk about this in the next slide in a bit more detail, how you go from one stage to another. Now, the next one, Himmat, by Himmat Singh, whatever you do in life, you start with ardas and you have to put maximum effort into it. And when we created the thing Sikhi to the Max through Share Charity, we intentionally gave it the name Sikhi to the Max because as Sikhs, we're not here to do Sikhi to a minimum level. Aim should be to understand Sikhi to the maximum level and try and follow it to the maximum level, and hence the name Sikhi to the Max. You need to have that everlasting effort and everlasting spirit that ਅਸੀਂ ਡੋਲਦੇ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈਗੇ ਨਾ ਅਸੀਂ ਡੁੱਬਦਾ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਪੈਂਦੇ ਹਾਂ. So ਡੋਲਦੇ means we don't give up, and dubda means we don't just get caught in dualities and easily get distracted. And for you to do that, so himmat and mokam are things about effort and to do. So when you basically have that spirit, then you need a certain determination, which comes from mokam. But with determination, you need patience. For you to be really successful in bhakti, you need to have a lot of patience. But then you also realize for you to be successful in life, and for you to be successful as a parent, for you to be successful in a business, for you to be successful as a teacher to your children, and for all of these things, for you to be successful in, you need to have patience and focus. So the worldly side, I often say in my talks, is you have the same skills to be successful in the worldly aspect of your life. You need the same skills to be successful in the spiritual side of your life. Once have got this effort, himmat and mokam, then you become a sahib. A sahib is a master of this world and beyond. Often our thinking of Gurbani, we bring it down to our level and we don't really realize where Guru Sahib has put us on this earth. And we are here to be a master of this world and beyond. So we as a panth, we've got to be a lot better talking with our children about Sachkhand, about what Sikhi is actually about. What is the actual journey that we should be going on as a Sikh, and how it's not just like doing what everyone else does on this earth. And so when we have this, not just the names of the Panj Pyare, we have this nare, what we call nare, which means it's not really slogans. Slogans ain't the right word to describe it. This is more about instructions from our Guru Sahib. So you might have heard this often in Gurdwara. Deg te fateh, Panth ki jeet, Raj karega Khalsa. So when you look at the names of the Panj Pyare, Daya and Taram is Deg te fateh. Basically, for you to understand, and these are your base foundations. So Deg is basically what we get from Guru Sahib, and Deg is our Shastras, and that will lead to our Fateh. So you have your spiritual side, you have your worldly side, and you have your Fateh in both. And for you to have that understanding, you need to have Daya and Dharam. And then when you have that and you bring it on a wider level, you as an individual human being, but on a wider level, for you to do that, you need to have himmat and mokam. You need to have that determination. You need to have that focus. You need to have that everlasting spirit. And with that, you get not just your jeet as an individual, it's your jeet as a panth, that as our nation, and we need to be more as a qawm and a nation. And then once we have both of them, then we become sahibs. Then we become these masters. Raj Karega Khalsa. So when we look at Dekhte Fateh, Panth Ki Jeet, Raj Karega Khalsa, let's start looking deeper into these kind of concepts. And for us to really understand Sahib and Raj Karega Khalsa, we have to understand the path Shahi that Guru Sahib has given us as an individual, us as a panth, and not just go around following the path Shahis of other nations. And we'll talk about that in question and answer if we want, because this is the life of most people living on this earth. They have crests and troughs, ups and downs, they have dukh and they have sukh. So there might be an unhappy day because some dukh has come in their life, and then late tomorrow they might be really happy because they got some sukh in their life, and then next day comes, they got some more dukh in their life. And most people on this earth, they spend most of their time just going through this cycle of sukh and dukh, sukh and dukh, sukh and dukh. And their spiritual life is the same. Often for many Sikhs is they're embraced in Maya because they're busy with their work, busy with all the other things that they do. But occasionally they might come to the Gurdwara, or they might come to a smagam or a camp, and then they feel inspired. So they're basically gone from Maya and become a bit more Guru orientated. Then when they leave the camp, leave the smagam or anything else, then they're back into Maya again. And they don't feel happy again. And then when they go to another more Sangat, then they go back to the Guru again. And then they come into Maya. And a lot of people, their spiritual life is like this as well, where they're going from crests to troughs. It's basically up and down, up and down, up and down. Maharaj tells us to do this, is mix our worldly and our spiritual lives. And part of doing this, Maharaj gives us Ananda Karaj. So that there's two of us, two bodies, one soul. So if one person is caught in Maya and the other Guru, you both blend into one. And so this is our first bit of Sangat, is that it's basically your Sangat with your Guru and your Sangat with your partner. And your partner is there to basically help uplift you, part of being more Guru orientated and less Maya orientated, so that you become on that spiritual journey. And we often hear of these things. So if you were basically, when people say, "Oh, how are you doing?" and they say Chardi Kala. Chardi Kala means that basically Maharaj has blessed me so much, I'm no longer in Sukh and Dukh. And that you've got to the point in your life, where basically you are now so out of this, because Guru in Gurbani talks about the difference between iron and gold. So basically these kind of analogies Guru Sahib uses a lot. So you're getting away from Sukh and Dukh. When you get out of Sukh and Dukh, you develop this mindset through Naam Japana, which is called Saj. So Saj is you're no longer depressed when you have some Dukh in your life. You're living in a state of Saj. And you're fine because tomorrow's another day. these things don't matter. Guru Sahib sees everything anyway, and Guru Sahib ਤੁਹਾਡੀ ਰਾਖੀ ਕਰਦੀ ਹੈ. So if you do have a bit of dukkh in life, you realize, yeah, this is temporary. I'm not going to be that worried about it. I'm just going to do my Simran. When you do get some sukh in your life, it's not like you got so happy, that's it, you're getting drunk and that's it, just doing bhangra everywhere. No, it's basically you realize, yeah, Maharaj has blessed me today. I've had some good sukh in my life today, but I'm going to be thankful to Maharaj and I'm still going to carry on just doing my Simran. When Sage, you carry on jumping Naam after you've already achieved Sage, then you get to this next level of thinking, which is called Anand. Anand Paya Meri Mae, Satguru Mein Paya. So just like it's explained in Anand Sahib, is that you're in a state of Sage, but you've already gone a bit higher because you're constantly happy. You're not dukhi at all, but you're constantly happy, and that is what we call a state of Anand. You know your Guru Sahib is Angsang, Guru Sahib is around you, Gurbani, you're listening to a lot. You've created this concept called Anand. You've achieved. Chardi Kala is a people that have basically carried on jumping Naam and gone on to build their Jivans. And so they're not even stopped at Anand, they've carried on jumping Naam, jumping. Some people, they say, oh, how are you? And they say Chardi Kala, but they look from their face like they're about to cry. Yeah, they're not really Chardi Kala. Chardi Kala is this thing where, because that person is still stuck, it's about realizing that Chardi Kala is an elevated state of mind. Your Kala is your soul, and you're elevated from Chardi Kala through Namabhyas, through Gurbani, through Jivan Jaj, your Red, and everything about you. Because this is a true marriage. So we have Gursikhs here in the north who do spiritual art, and this is one of them called Aminder Singh. And this is called the Anand Karaj. So this is husband and wife, but in the Amrita Vela, every morning they're doing so much Waheguru Simran, Waheguru, 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 Waheguru. They're doing so much Simran that their soul is bursting out of their bodies. And this is what you call a true Ananda Karaj. A true Ananda Karaj is not just sitting there watching Netflix and going on holidays, etc. Because these kind of things, your relationship where your two bodies become one soul, that only happens if you jump an arm together. Is when you're doing bhakti together as a husband and wife, your marriage is unbreakable. It's impossible. And I've come across people that have got divorced and other things like that. And one of the first things when they come to me and ask me for advice, I said to them, did you do Amrit Vela together? And they said, no. And if you don't do Amrit Vela together, you're not going to develop that kind of thinking together, that kind of spirituality together. This is the Satya Soda that Guru Sahib gives us. He's basically the average person. So that's why when we do things from Khalsa Foundation, this strapline, this is the things we do, which is just breathe Waheguru. Because fundamentally, this is what Sikhi is about. The average person breathes 80 times a minute. And that's 4,800 breaths in an hour, which is 115,200 breaths in a day. You just breathe Waheguru, you're doing so much bhakti, that you're basically, everything in your life will just fall into place. And it's about realizing what is the real Satya Soda. The real Satya Soda is jumping as much Naam as possible through your breath, through your Saskara Simran. And when you start doing that, Kirtan becomes the food of your soul. Sad Kushiyan, Kirtan Japanam, as it says in Gurbani. That basically, so this is another spiritual art from Aminder Singh. So here's a Kirtani. He's doing Kirtan, but he's not just doing it as a performance, he's doing it for his soul. And when he's doing for his soul, there's so much kala coming outside of him through that Kirtan and through his asaj that basically it's immersing everything around him. This is why Kirtan is not performances. Kirtan is your conversations with Akal Purkh. So when we're finishing up talking about what are the Guru Sahib's favorite souls. So Guru Amar Das Ji, on Ang 649 of the Sahib Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji, Guru Sahib talks in the body, he says, who are my favorite souls? And that's a question. And Guru Sahib then says, blessed is the good fortune of those devotees, those Gursikhs, who with their mouths utter the name of Waheguru. So those people that jap naam, Amrit Vela, and through the day, they are blessed. So he sees them as very, very special on this earth. But then blessed is the good fortune of those Gursikhs who with their ears listen to the. So it's not just about jumping nam through your mouth. It's about as you jump nam, you listen to it through your ears. So basically, you've got that around you where you're listening to it. It's your body, your soul. So that's what Guru Sahib's saying there. And then blessed is the good fortune of those holy Gursikhs, that Sangat, who sit in sing Kirtan of the Lord's praises and become so virtuous. So Guru Sahib saying it's not just about going into Kirtan, it's about doing the Kirtan, singing the Kirtan, but allowing yourselves to become so virtuous. So learning from the message of Kirtan and adopting the virtues, the gons of Akal Purkh, and bringing them into your own personality. So your personality is going from a change of a Manmukh to a Gurmukh. So it's not about thinking of Kirtan as just another form of music, which you tend to listen outside of other kinds of music. No, Kirtan is transformational onto your soul. And then it says, blessed is the good fortune of those Gurmukhs who live as Gursikhs and conquer their minds. So manjite te Jagjit. So you're now not just naam chipping through your lips and listening it through your ears, but you're becoming transformational through the Kirtan and Gurbani, but now you're also conquering your mind. Which we'll talk about if Gursikhs want to understand that concept a bit more, where you're jumping naam to so much level that you're breaking your dasam dwar and you're conquering your mind on this earth. But then it says, after everything out of all of these things, but the greatest good fortune of all is that of the Guru Sikhs who fall at the Guru's feet, who submit themselves in front of the Sahib Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji and basically accept all the hukams of Gurmukh, of Gurbani, of Guru Sahib. And so that Guru is part of who they are, is part of their personality because they've submitted to Guru. And a person who falls in front of their Guru, Guruji gives them so much kirpa, they can stand in front of anything. So for a perfect example of this is Banda Singh Bahadur. He fell in front of Sahib Sri Guru Gobind Singh Ji, and he fell at his feet and he says, I'm your Banda, main tera bandaya. And Guru Sahib blessed him so much that he stood in front of the whole Mughal Raj. And, and this is understanding. Lastly, another painting that we've done here, the Singh has done. Some people go into the Gurdwara and they basically just sit in the Sangat. But some people do some people do so much Gupta Bhyas that when they go into the Sangat, they might be physically sitting there, spiritually or there, in the dance wise, in the kirtans, in the camps, in the smagams. And that's a separate talk that I do, which is called Learn to Fly as a Gursikh, which is about really understanding your spiritual development. And so this is what we have to understand. Don't just think of Sikhi as about being like what we would call part-time, where you just go to the Gurdwara on a Sunday and you watch a few programs and stuff like that. Really start thinking about Sikhi as a jivan, developing that process where you're going on improving yourselves and making yourself mentally and spiritually stronger. And that's where the parenting course comes in, where we talk about not just making yourself spiritually and stronger, but also the whole family unit around you and your sangat. Hopefully people have found this helpful. So what I've done here is just introduced and put some seeds of thought out there for you to think about. And then what we can do is explore some of these concepts in question and answer that Guru Sikhs might want to talk a bit more about. If you have any questions on anything that we've discussed, feel free, because it's not like Gata, it should be Gosti. Gosti basically means is that we put ideas forward as Pracharaks, and then you basically are analyzed as a joint process. You and myself, we improve our thought processes so to Guru Sahib and get more into the Sharan of Guru Sahib. Pulchik maaf karna, Waheguru Ji ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji ki Fateh.
Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh, Bahut bahut dhanwad, Bhai Sahib. It's a very insightful talk. Sangat Ji, if there's any questions, feel free to unmute yourselves and ask Bhai Sahib directly, or you can use the question link, which is posted in text for voice, if there's any questions. So, Paisa, we don't have any questions coming to the question box as such right now. But if you could expand on the concept of the higher concepts of joining as one soul.
So you have those people. This is I'm talking more about people after they've come into Sikhi and basically, especially after taking Amrit. So when you take Amrit Naam and through Japing Naam, and this is where people often need to understand when is the right time for them to take Amrit. And this is where I would really recommend a book called Amrit Ki Hai, which is it's called written by Bhai and Singh. The reason I recommend that book is when I was in my just about starting university, that was the book I read. And my understanding of taking Amrit totally changed after reading that book. Because what Bhai asks is he questions you, why do you want Amrit? And what is it about? What are you trying to gain? You know? And then you realize, he talks about many people take Amrit because their friends are taking Amrit or their families take an Amrit, or they basically see as this is how they're going to get to a certain place in society, or that they just want to be better as a Sikh, etc. And fundamentally what Guru Sahib talks what Bhajanti Singh talks about in that book is what Guru Sahib's concept is about Naam Ras, Amrit Ras, and so Naam Ras is something that we should be striving for. Every single Sikh should be striving for that. And Amrit Ras is basically when you take Amrit, the same the Nitnem that you do, the Panj Baniya, they're exactly the same as you do every morning in your Nitnem. So basically, as an Amritdhari, when we say we're Amritdhari, which means we have Tar and Amrit, which means that basically we have blessed with Amrit. Now, that shouldn't be something that is a one-day thing that's happened in your life. And what essentially we should be striving for, and this is very difficult to achieve, but we should be talking about these concepts. Basically, every day, that experience that we had when we took Amrit is the experience we should be having when we're doing our Nitnem. So that we do our Saskara Simran, and then when we're doing our Saskara Simran, we are preparing our mind, preparing our kit, our field, which is our mind, so that when you put that seed in, which is Amrit, you get an amazing harvest. So that basically, at the time when you basically got to Anand Sahib in your daily Nitnem, you are basically feeling in a state of Anand. And then during the day, it's like you've just Amrit Shakti, you've just been drinking that Amrit as you basically been doing the Ardas and now starting your day. So then you've Tar and Amrit every single morning. And then when you start really understanding these concepts, then you start looking at what is, and I'll talk about this in a very simplistic form. There is Gopt Simran and there's Sangti Simran. So many people, we do Sangti Abhyas, Sangti Simran, Sangti Abhyas, which means we go to certain camps, we go to certain Ranswais or Kirtan Dabars, etc., or the Gurdwara, and everyone else is doing Simran or listening to Kirtan or singing Kirtan, and you just join in. And if that is your spiritual intake, and that is fine. So when you're in that Sangat, you're going to be inspired. You're going to be inspired, and that's fine. And for majority of people, that's all they want and that's all they need, and they're very happy and comfortable there. They've created their own comfort zone. But then there's other people that have thought in their lives, I want to get to Sachkhand. I want to live Sakhi to the max. So they're the people that when they're by themselves, when you're at home by yourselves, are you just sitting there on social media? Are you just posting things? Are you just distracted with other things? The people that are then at that time doing their abhyas, the people that at that time when no one else is there, when Guru Sahib sees you but no one else sees you, people at that time who are basically doing their abhyas, they are building their, let's say as a baker you build your cake, they're building their foundations. And then when them people, because they're doing abhyas all the time, when them people come into the same sangats and they're sitting in sangati, or because they prepared themselves beforehand, they're not just getting the ras of being in the sangat, they're then starting to fly. They're then basically because they've been doing that abhyas all the time. And so this is a concept that we should explore a bit wider. which is what is the benefits of Gupta Abhyas? What is the benefit of doing Abhyas as often as possible during the day, so that you're constantly in this process where you're just constantly improving, you're constantly getting more sej, more nimrta, you constantly are looking to become a better person or a better quality in terms of your jivan. Does that make sense? Is that
Hanji. Hanji Vaiguru we've got a few questions coming now. So the first question is, could you go into more detail about the conquering of the mind through Kirtan and Sangat?
so? The thing about conquering our mind, and basically what we have to understand, this is not an easy thing to just explain here, because we've got whole granths on this stuff, you know? To understand what this means is how you conquer your mind. So manjite te jagjit. The first thing we have to do in any process is that we have to basically tear down the structures that are already put up that imprison us. You can only build something special, basically are not building around them structures of discrimination. Instead, you're building something pristine. So what are the structures that imprison us? Jatpat imprisons us, caste, discrimination, all of these things, anger, and all of these things in terms think we are in terms of looking down on other people, race, our having home in who we are from our family structures. And this is not just talking about people in India, even in abroad in our countries that we're living in here. Sometimes people think, oh, I'm in a particular Jathibandi and I'm a known person, so therefore I'm something special. Whereas all the Gursikhs that are actually the people that are the standard bearers from all our Jathibandiya, the one thing they all have in common is they all said we are nothing and we submit to our Guru, which is why they are the special Gursikhs they are. And so it's about understanding what are the structures that are holding us back. The biggest ones often in our youth is Kam and is Krodh. Because other storms of the Kam, Krodh, Lom, Onkar, they will affect you at different stages of your life. Ego is always there. It's a constant, and at every stage of your life. But when I was 16, 17, I used to say to spiritual Gursikhs that we used to do Abhyas with, like Bhai Singh, I used to say to him, Bhai Sahib, attachment is easy. I'm not attached to anything. And Bhai Sahib said, that's because you're 17. You've not done anything in your life. And now that I'm almost 45, 46, and I've got a business and I've got a family and I've worked hard to do the things that I do, now I understand more about what attachment is. And in the same way, when you're in later on in your life, lust is not that strong. But in that period of when you're from maybe 13, 14 up until your probably late 20s, etc., many people are challenged with lust, etc. So these things are going to affect you at different times. You have to break them down. Once you break them down, that's why it says, we talk about Pehla maran kabul hai, jeevan ki shad aas. So all your asa meeda of life, o maar do. You're starting off just purely at the foundations, and then your foundations should be of daya, your foundation should be of ret, and your foundation should be of basically your nitnem, your bani, your tiyas, and all the things that you're trying to build on top of that. And then you do, and every time you meet a Gursikh, this is a tip for everybody. Every time you meet a Gursikh, take a gun away from them. A gun with you that you've learned from them. Or when you read your Itihas and you're reading about Pratan Gursikhs by Baba Deep Singh Ji or Mata Sahib Kaur Ji, etc. So that you're taking something from and you're building it as a part of your personality. Because your jivan is like a jigsaw puzzle. You're just constantly putting one piece here, one piece there, one piece there, and eventually you'll create a beautiful picture, which is your jivan. So this is about understanding about how you're building yourself up. And the way you build yourself up is Bijori and Seva. The way you build yourself up is, now many Gursikhs, when you go into Guru Sahib's Darbar, we don't go with our head in our hands, because we're so used to going Gurdwara, we're so used to going into thing and listening to Kirtan and Samagams and Katha and everything else, it becomes like the norm. And Guru Sahib often tells us, when we were with Bhai Singh, he used to say to us, keep a handkerchief in our pockets, and every time we go to Gurdwara, Beladu Jori and the Seva, bring your head down and then slowly walk into the Darbar Hana? And then during the day, that was when we were doing our morning darshan and taking Hukamnama and our Amrit Vela at the Gurdwara. And during the day, we would basically, if we felt any Kam, Krodh, Lo, Munkar, we would take that handkerchief outside of our pocket and put it back on our forehead, which is the Charantur of the Sangat. And we would do Waheguru, Waheguru, Waheguru Simran again. So then you're defeating Tir. So often we talk about in Gurbani, Tir Vajdeya, arrows of lust, anger, greed, attachment, ego. So this is basically when we have locking on again. So this is when we basically have during our day, you get hit by these traffic in the morning. It might be someone being racist across the road. It might be someone at your school or your university or your boss or someone shouting at you because they've got their own issues. And that dirvaj there. But those people that have their sej, those people that have their nithanim, they basically don't react because your sej and your nithanim protects you from all the tirs that life is going to throw at you that day. And this is again part of building yourself up. But ultimately, the two things that really protect you is your babek, your soj, and your naam. The more Gurbani you read, the more naam you jap, the more you understand it's not just about reading and naam japping, it's about implementation of that into your personality. Then you see yourself changing, and you see yourself changing. And a benti to all the Gursikhs, you should have an annual review. We've been talking about this in our Sangats now for many years, and we have annual reviews. I do it at Basaki because I took Amrit at Basaki in 1995. So every year at Basaki, I will start looking at my Jivan, and I was thinking, what shall I really work on this year? Do I need to improve my Bani more? Do I need to improve this, or do I need that? Far too many people don't do that. And if you don't do that, you can get stale as a Gursikh. You can just drift from year to year to year, and you're not actually improving. You're not striving. You're not getting better. And many people then start digressing because they're not actually self-analyzing their journey or their process. Has that been helpful so far?
Hanji, Vaheguru ji. The other question that we had was, did any of the Panj Pyare have a friendship with Guru Gobind Singh Ji Maharaj before taking Amrit?
I will only be able to give my opinion, and I'm very careful when I do talks where I say this is my opinion, and I can't source this, but I believe that the ruah of all our Gursikhs from our Itihas and even modern day have always been close to Guru Sahib, in this life or a previous life. And the other thing is that the other thing we have to really mention here is that the original Panj Pyare were from all over the place. They were from very different regions of what people call India today. And too many of us, we think, oh, this person's a Bhaiya, this person's like this. Then I realized there was one of the original Panj Pyare was from Bihar. Or this person's from South India and they're like this. Karnataka people are like this. And we don't realize Gursikhs from Atiyas, even Banda Singh Bahadur, they're from very different. They weren't all Punjabis, and they weren't all from a certain region. But I personally believe the ruha of all Gursikhs, and any of these your youth here, any of you spend at least 2 or 3 years Naam Japing someone at Villa. Maharaj Kirpa, we've been blessed to be Naam Japing with many Gursikhs Amrit Villa for years. If you ever get the blessings to do that, your level of biyar with them Gursikhs is immense because you've shared your abhyas with them. That's why when I hear about Gursikhs at 84 or 78 and even the Babbars and all these other Gursikhs and how they were all shaheed, how they wouldn't tell the police or grass anyone up or anything, and they were just like ultimately asi dasna nahi hega, it's because they've done that bhakti together. And that together you become like more than any kind of lifelong friend. You basically have a bond which is beyond life, and I believe the original Panj Pyare, they were like that with Guru Sahib.
The other question we have is, where can I read some more eyewitness accounts of formation of the Panj Pyare, and how accurate are these eyewitness accounts?
Okay. So when we're talking about historical texts, and again, I'm giving you an opinion, I would say to you is that there's a lot out there, and as a panth, we have not been great at being good researchers, and Maharaj Kirpa, and the reason for that is that for as a nation, we've been in a constant state in a constant state of shangarsh. No? Originally, it was with the Mughals, then it was with the British, and then it's been with the Brahmin Sarkars. And only by coming out into the West, and that's our generations now, where we have relative safety, and we're not in as much of a state of shangarsh as we were before, we have now finally got time to actually sit and digest all our texts, our historical texts, and the ones that are still being saved, because many got destroyed. And so, and it's not just the text that we know exist there. There's also a lot of stuff in universities and various places around the world. I come across many stories where people were talking about, because you always used to hear these stories about goats and all this other stuff, nonsense that communist people that were putting into our communities just to badnaam the guru, and so you had all of these things where people talked about tent, and Guru Sahib did this in the tent and he took the seats off, etc. And I came across about 15, 20 years ago, and we published it where in our groups here in UK. Um, these eyewitness accounts of a spy from the Mughal Darbar, and he talked about how Guru Sahib actually cut the seas right in front of everybody, and he put a different ser on a different Gursikh, and he sewed them back on, and he gave them Amrit, and they came back to life when they took Amrit. And then he talked right at the end of that eyewitness account. He said, "This is my last account to you. I'm not going to be writing anymore because basically I fall in love with the Guru myself." You know? And so that could be also his own viewpoint, because when you come into Abhyas and Sikhi, you also realize that two people can watch the same thing and see it very differently. Because one could see things with spiritual eyes and another people can see it with just worldly eyes. And so what I would personally say is that we need to get far more better researching, and also realizing that different perspectives exist. But when I look at Itihas and historical texts and everything else, I often look at them through the lens of Gurbani, because I believe everything should be through the lens of Gurbani. So when some people talk about other things which are anti-Gurmat practices, I dismiss them because I believe that that is actually the bias of certain writers, whereas other things you know are very clear because they function through the lens of Gurbani. So Gurbani for me is what I see as the thing that we should always look at everything through. And anyone who does Naam, anyone who does Amrit, anyone who basically is sincerely, and this is the fundamental thing I would always say to all the Najwans, the thing that is really going to help you really fly as a Gursikh is your sincerity, because you cannot be insincere with the Guru. Guru sab kuch janda hai, he's always around you, ang sang hai, Maharaj Kirpa nal, and so he sees everything. And if you're sincere, you can do things where you basically can be a different person in front of the Sangat and a different person by yourself. You can't do that with the Guru. And if you start living Sikhi with sincerity and living through with your things, Guru Sahib gives you spiritual eyes. And then when Guru Sahib gives you spiritual eyes, it's very easy when you're sitting with people, you will just know, "Ah, bande ne mainu change paase launa hai, ah, bande ne nahi mere change paase launa hai." Or when you're looking through historical texts and everything, you will give you that vivek where you understand, no, Maharaj, this is not what Maharaj wanted. This is this person's bias of what they're talking about. But this is what happened to Guru Sikhs. So you develop that kind of spiritual lensing yourself.
Waheguru. The final question that we have here is Sangat's asking, if you do Nitnem and Simran just with your partner, are you not attaching yourself to your partner?
No. Um, I think what it is when we talk about attachment, people get slightly confused with this. You know? Now, we live in a world where there's constant distraction. And I'll give you an example. This is very just crude, straightforward example I use in my parenting course. Now, when we were young, we would watch a movie. Let's say you're watching a Hollywood movie. And that Hollywood movie would be basically maybe an hour, hour and a half. And if someone was watching a Bollywood movie, it maybe be 3 hours. Now people are watching box sets and they're like 80 hours, 90 hours. And it's that constant distraction you have on your social media and everything else. And at the same time, what you also have now is you have the whole Instagram sort, where basically people think that other people's lives are far better than they are. And then they look at their own lives and think, oh, there must be something wrong with me. When actually they're perfectly fine. Their marriage is perfectly fine. Everything is perfectly fine. It's just that things are photoshopped, or people are not always going on holidays or doing other things like that. It's just the way people present themselves. So what it is then these people start thinking, well, what is attachment? Should I be attached to my wife? Should I be attached to my children? Should I be attached to this kind of thing? When Guru Sahib talks about attachment, is you should have that pyar with your wife. You should have that pyar with your children. You should have that pyar with your Gursikhs and your Sangat around you. Attachment is if you lose it, will you become mentally imbalanced? I'll give you an example of that. There's a Gursikh I was very blessed to darshan of. His name was called Puranji. He was given that name by Bhai Singh. He lived in Amritsar, Pakka Amritullah, 12 o'clock every morning in Darbar Sahib. And there were kamre at the side of Darbar Sahib where loads of Sangat would come with him throughout his life and do Amritullah with. Hundreds of people used to do Amritullah with Bhai Puranji. Bhai Puranji had two sons. People who listen to Kirtan a lot will know about them. There's loads of tapes of their Kirtan, fantastic Kirtanis, etc. And them two sons were going to a samagam. And when them two sons were going to a samagam, they had a motorcycle accident. And instantly, one of them had just done their resta only recently and they were about to get married. But instantly in that motorcycle accident, both Munde passed away, both Gursikhs passed away. And the Gursikhs, Bhai Puranji and the Sangat, were coming back from the same samagam. And their bus went past where the car accident scene was, not knowing that that is their own children that have just had the car accident there, because there was white sheets over the bodies, But they still stopped and they said, there's some ruah here, we need to stop and do ardas for them. And the Gursikh stopped and they did ardas for whoever had just passed away, and before they carried on going with the Sangat, for their ruha. When they got home, they realized as the news came out that that was their own two sons, and that's their only two children. And Bhai Puranji went into the kamra with Jithe Maharaj Prakash Saga, and Bhai Puranji said, Maharaj, jo bhi thwada a, tusi le gaye, Anandya, Anandya, Anandya. So basically, it wasn't like, oh my God, these are my only two sons. This is my family tree. This is what everything's here. And they've just passed away and they were so young, they weren't even married, taken them from me. It was the fact that he said they were yours in the first place, and you must have needed them, so you've taken them. That's fine. I'm Maharaj Kirpa. I'm in Anand. I'm in Anand. I'm in Anand. That is the mindset that doesn't have attachment. And so basically, that's what when we're understanding what attachment is, it's about realizing it. If it's taken away from me, Maharaj Kirpa, I will still be in a state of Anand. So when we're talking about developing that relationship, you got to develop your Sangat process. Your Sangat process is developing your marriage. Like now I come across people, even Amritaris, they'll go on these marriage courses. They will go on these courses that Gauri have designed because they think this sounds good. I'm just amazed. I was thinking, you listen to Kirtan, you listen to Bani, you listen to Katha, and really, it's because people only give it lip service and don't you really use it as a life-changing experience. If you really want to make your marriage strong, you got to do Amrit Vela together. You got a family that prays together, stays together. You basically, if you're doing a bias with your children will be there till the end. They'll be doing seva for you. They'll be doing everything for you because you develop that spiritual connection, not just your worldly relationships. And with your Singhni, you should be doing Amrit Vela together. And we've even written a book about this where we talk about young people that are growing up in their West, all the mistakes they're making in their marriages and everything else, which is why it's leading on to higher divorce rates in our community. Because we had Sikhi Marriage Week we ran on social media for the last 2 years through various groups that we operate. Hannah, and we realized what is this thing that people are having marriage breakdowns on, and we saw some commonalities. We realized that them commonalities are the fact that the biggest, most important factor is too many people are married, Hannah, they're watching Netflix at night or whatever, but they're not doing any Nitnem or Amrit Vela together, Hannah. And then how can you have that kind of strong marriage, Hannah? So these are things that Guru Sahib has blessed us with that we need to implement.
Ji. Waheguru ji, just follow up question on that point. One of the Sangat members have clarified. They were saying if you lose your partner, will you want to do Nitnem as you'll be so used to doing it with them?
No, anyone can do Nitnem anytime. I'm think they probably misunderstood what I was saying. I'm just saying that if you're husband and my wife, Nithanim together so that you both are each other's sports structure. There might be one night where you're basically are very tired because you might have had a very stressful day or you've had a hard session in sports wise and everything else, and you might want to get up a bit later, but your partner is there inspiring you, saying, No, no, apa utnaya, apa apna Nithanim karna, apa simran karna, and you're helping each other through the sukh and dukh of life. So you're there as a Sangat support structure for each other to make sure you maintain your Amrit Vela. You're there to help each other get it together. But especially when you have children, it gets very difficult. It gets very difficult for some BBM because they have to be up at things, or some things that also get up in different times, etc. And this is where you basically are coming together. You're helping each other. You're supporting each other. There'll be times when you don't do Nitrim. I asked to go to different sangats. There'll be times where basically, you're not there with your partner for many weeks, etc. It's just wherever you are. And this is the thing when I talk about Gursikhs that do bhakti together. Hana? Gursikhs that do bhakti together, I know that because I've been blessed to do Amritullah for many years with certain Gursikhs. Hana? Even when they've passed away, or even when they're on different parts or you're in a different country than them, when you're sitting there by yourself and you're doing your Simran, sometimes it feels like they're there with you, sitting next to you. These are the connections that you have. And that is the PR that you create around you. You're feeling that your spiritual journeys are so interconnected, intertwined with each other. And that's why, I always say to people, do abhyas as Sangat as do abhyas as Gursikhs. If you're basically going to the Gurdwara, you're doing Pandyandi Seva, and you're spending hours and hours doing Pandyandi Seva, and you get home and you never wash the dishes, and you expect your missus to wash the dishes, and your Seva at the Gurdwara is questionable, because in your house there's Gursikhs as well. Your child, your Singni, they're Gursikhs. You should be doing seva of them as well. So if you're not doing if you're going to the Gurdwara and you're cleaning the Gurdwara, but at home you don't do zero chores, then you have to really question, what are you doing? You have to see the people in your family as Gursikhs. Does that make sense, or am I confusing people here?
Hanji, Waheguru ji. That was the last of the questions. Just wanted to say thank you, Paisa, for agreeing to coming on and sharing the wealth of knowledge and experience that you have, and blessing us for, and giving us this knowledge through Guru's Kirpa. And thank you for coming on the platform. Hopefully, Paisa ji, we'll have you again on time in the future. Thank you once again, Sangat ji, for joining as well. ਇੱਥੇ ਫਤਿਹ ਬੁਲਾਉਂਦੇ ਜੀ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ